All right, welcome back to week 11 or 12, something like that, of Brothers on the Green. We got PGA Tour Pro Dice, got myself. It's another week. Unfortunately, no winners last week on the outright side. I had Finau like plus 350 or something, top 20, but that's about where all the winners ended for us. It was a great event. Scotty's back on top of the golf world.
Yep.
He was just incredible in terms of the first 2 days. Didn't have his stuff, right? Had his C game at best and just grinded out a couple gritty rounds. And then Saturday started to feel out the swing. He said he didn't have any good swings really until 14. And
Yeah.
then from 14 to 18, he didn't miss a spot. So, he
Mhm.
just has a way to score and to hang in there, especially on tough golf courses like Quail Hollow was. A lot of talk about Quail being, not a great major venue, but it has a way of getting the best golfer in the field to the top of the leaderboard on a year in and year out basis. So, that was a great event. Scotty's back on top, and today we'll start off talking a little bit about Scotty.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, great event, and Quail definitely got a lot of, shit prior to the week. Just it seemed like a lot of it was built into it being a PGA Tour stop year in, year out, so the guys know the course and all that stuff. But obviously ended up being, what was it, -11. The winner, second place was -6. So like it played tough, wasn't an easy course. Seemed it got the, like you said, the best golfer in the world on top at the end of the day, and that's what we want to get with these major venues. So that was definitely good to see. But with Scotty, I mean, like you said, that back nine on Saturday, 14 through 18, it's just like it seems like it's like a level that no one else could really reach in like certain points. And he seems to do that always when it's the most important times. I mean, I thought back to the players, even though, it's not the similar situation, he was already up there tied for the lead. He simply knows how to close rounds and get himself in the best position possible going into Sunday, rather than maybe getting himself on the back foot a little bit. He always closes strong, always puts himself in a strong position, and that's why, he is the best player in the world on top of just how good his game is itself.
Yeah, I mean, they said what he gained like 5.5 strokes just in those 5 holes,
Yeah, it's disgusting.
which is insane. But really, his biggest thing now is his putting is top 10 in the world.
It's crazy.
With that combination of his ball striking and that putting, he's going to be tough to beat whenever he's really just somewhat in control of his swing. Because even his B minus swing is, pretty much as good as it comes on the PGA Tour nowadays. So that was a very impressive week from start to finish. His finish on Saturday, right, compared to Bryson's finish on Saturday,
The
really
difference.
was the difference in the tournament.
Mhm.
Bryson is honestly very impressive in terms of his scrambling ability. Obviously, his driving is great. His irons have not been good at all. And then his scrambling ability, chipping and putting for a majority of the tournament was quite impressive, right? I mean, his putting on Sunday kind of let him down. He didn't make anything. He had a few chances there to get himself back into the tournament, right? Cut within 1 or 2 strokes of the lead, and they just were not falling. Really, not great putts most of the time.
Yeah, that downhill one he had on like I don't know if it was 12 or 13, just left it like he was like 7 feet left it short. He hasn't been, the best performer on Sundays for the most part. I know he obviously won the US Open, he closed it out there, but for the most part, the last, year and a half at least, he hasn't been performing the best on Sundays. But I also, you referenced it itself. The wedges, the irons is really his only issue right now. If he was like, top 25 in the field with those per se, and with the rest of his game right now, he'd be knocking off probably some more majors after the US Open he got last year. And I think that's, he talks about we saw after the tournament, he's talking about his 190 plus ball speed, how that's just a tougher, speed to control the spin of the ball, everything like that. But at least from my point of view, he has no issue with controlling the driver. I mean, he's, not as straight as they come, but he's very accurate for how deep he is off the tee. It's more about his yardage control, right? The wedges, the irons. He's never getting it to the pin high or right at it because he's got to play such a big draw. It seems like that's the only shot shape that he can go with rather than like Rory learned the saw-off finish, being able to control that a lot more. Bryson just he goes with one shot, it's all out on every single one, and just doesn't seem to work with the irons and wedges. And if he can get that fixed out, obviously still the rest of his game is top of the world, and he's going to continue to compete. It's just a matter of if he actually wants to, I think, win one of these with Scottie and Rory playing at the top of their game, he's got to figure a couple things out with that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's one of those things where he knows his swing, better than we know his swing, but it's
One of those psychos.
yeah, he's out of control with the equipment talk. Golf ball, he wants to fly straighter, with his he doesn't stop thinking, right, and trying to come up with stuff,
Agreed.
which I do like. And at the end of the day, he's always trying to get better in certain
Yeah.
aspects, but a lot of it he doesn't want to change his swing or do anything like that. He wants it to be, the equipment for to perform better for what he's doing. And he's the only guy that thinks that way. I mean, in terms of trying to create his own stuff, he's got those irons we spoke about before, right? The bulge face. The driver, I believe, is, most drivers are bulge face, but his is extra. So I'm impressed with him, though. I mean, another T2 in a major. He's
Sick.
putting himself up there, major after major, giving himself a chance, even when he's, really not hitting many quality iron shots. A lot of it is because of the spin, right? And, just with his swing speed, it is tough to control your irons at the end of the day.
He's just giving it like even on a course that was that long, he's giving himself 100 to 150 so consistently. Where if he can, find something with simply that yardage, like we see him on a par three tee box, 210 on 17 when he went in the water, or I think it was maybe 200. He hits an 8 iron. Like I mean, it's like how
That was
many
into the wind.
how many clubs do you have, nine wedge on top of that for like the yardage? You don't have like a lot of options. You have to play like a certain type of shot because you just have so limited clubs underneath that when, 8 irons, 200 plus, it's like it doesn't really,
Yeah, no, that's true.
benefit you too much.
Yeah, no, that's true. So, Bryson again, another top finish. He is
Impressive.
impressive.
Yeah.
And it's back to the drawing board for him. He's always tinkering and always trying to figure it out. Oakmont should be a great venue for him again, right? With the length, the thick rough. He's incredibly straight off the tee for his distance. So if he can just get his irons to about average, right, then
He's going to continue to contend.
yeah, he'll continue to contend. It was nice to see Rahm back in the mix.
Yeah, big
Right,
time.
Johnny Rahm, first major he's really been in contention since he's went over to live, and his game looked great. I mean, he was right there. Obviously, he was tied for the lead on the back nine, and he just had a few things not go his way. That lip out on I don't know if that was 12
13. It was
13.
yeah, he
Yeah,
birdied 10 and 11 and then 13 because he was tied on 13. That was to take a one-shot lead, I think.
yeah,
Uh Obviously if you look, they showed that overhead view. It looked like it was going in the center of the top end and then it just started breaking the other way. So that was brutal. But that didn't really, rattle him at that point because he stepped up to 14, the drivable par four, hits a beautiful draw right into looks like the front of the green, gonna bounce, straight off his draw, spin to the left side, center of the green. And it just took like a pretty brutal hop to be honest, into the right bunker. Hits it to what, like 5, 7 feet, misses that birdie putt. So I mean, that was a blown chance. And then 14 again, two beautiful shots, bombed his drive.
15.
Yeah, 15 bombed his drive, hit a pure, I don't know, I think a wood into the green just over.
Yep.
And hammers a putt by, blows it by, and then obviously we know what happened 16 to 18.
Yeah, I mean, 14 and 15 are really the killers. He put himself in such great positions. Not a great bunker shot on 14, right? Definitely could have gotten that within 3, 4 feet of the hole. It was pretty
Both of them.
straightforward bunker shot. And then just a bad putt there. That was really his one really bad putt. And 15 wasn't a great putt either. The
No,
lag putt off the green or the putt,
no,
for birdie. But those were really his two chances to
yeah.
get into the lead because he knew Scotty was going to birdie those holes, right? Or at least one of them. So,
Exactly. And then 16, it's just 16 bad drive, hits it to the left. It seemed like I saw a couple guys comparing it to like when he was in the Olympics and had the lead what was that, like last year when Scotty
yeah,
obviously back and won. His miss right now when it seems like he's in contention is just like he has such a fast swing already. That fade sort of goes away a little bit, sort of starts to pull the ball. We saw that on 16. And then, I mean, 17, honestly, I don't really think it's like a pressure thing. I just thought he had to attack that flag.
yeah,
Probably he wouldn't have done if he, buried a couple of the holes before. So, I mean, I think that's just him still wanting to win and getting aggressive, not like falling under pressure, more so just taking on a shot that's a hard shot.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I mean, realistically, he should just be 20 feet's a good shot there.
No, yeah.
Even if he hit a perfect shot, it's probably going to roll out past the pin especially when you're hitting that hard draw. But he wasn't worried about losing spots in the
Yeah.
rankings, right, or losing money. He was looking to win the event. So I do respect him going for that. And then 18, he kind of just was whatever at that point and just wanted to get into the
He
clubhouse.
was beating Siwoo on thing on like 12 by like 8, and then they were in the same group. They shot the same score.
Yeah, that would have been nice if you had Siwo.
I know. But yeah, so overall good to see Ron back, but obviously just a couple of things I guess to clean up with, finishing out these big events. Obviously, maybe he still doesn't win if he gets a birdie on 14, 15. Scotty still, might do his thing, but it's more so about making Scotty make those shots under a little bit of pressure rather than having, a 5, 6 stroke
Yep.
lead in those tough holes.
Yeah, no, and Scotty, I mean, just the way he's able to fix his swing mid-round just by saying, all right, let me square up my shoulders and aim a little more right. That's all he needs, right? He's not a technical guy. You saw on the range, he's the only guy that doesn't carry a track man or anything like that. He just wants to
Deal.
feel the ball flight and know he's hitting it well, and then he's good to go, right, for the round. But a few other names, right? Harris English, nice final round, 6 under. I mean, that course was playing brutal on Sunday. They did, made a few accessible hole locations, but it was so firm and fast, and the wind was up enough where that course was playing incredibly hard, right? The next best score on this leaderboard is 3 under, right? Or Corey Connor shot 4 under, but T19.
Snuck a T2 out of it. I started the day even, snuck a T2. I mean, that's
It's
regardless of being,
huge.
yeah, it's huge for points, everything like that. I mean, he has the win earlier in the year at not the Genesis, the
Sanders, no, not
well,
at Torrey Pines,
at Torrey Pine, yeah, whatever the term. I think maybe the well, no, I
the
think the Wells Fargo.
Farmers.
Yeah, the Farmers. So he won that elevated event already, and then T second in a major. He's definitely making a pretty strong case for Bethpage as well.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. That tied two at a major. It's huge for the Ryder Cup points. Davis Riley, right? He's really found his game again.
He was lost for a while.
Yeah, he talked about how he was trying to like neutralize his ball flight in the offseason and was trying to change his swing. And then it was very clear that was not the path he should go down. And it took him a few months to get back that swing he had last year, and he's found it again, which is always nice to see.
He was an elite amateur, right? Like I'm pretty like his name
Yeah,
above most of these, big name like obviously top
yeah,
some top players.
Alabama kid.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the last guy, right, JT Poston, that bogey on 18, it's going to cost him a lot of Ryder Cup points, right, going from T2 to T5. Unfortunately, we're having to talk about guys like English and Poston going to be on the Ryder Cup team, but that's the reality of the United States situation right now. It was a great event, right? It was a fun event. Ben Griffin snuck a top 10 in. Denny McCarthy snuck a top 10. Gerard snuck a top 10. Neiman, right? So guys you didn't really see hit any shots on Sunday. But they all snuck out those
But
quality
there was like
rounds.
10 guys. There was like 10 guys tied for T8 at -4, I think. Neiman
Yeah.
snuck. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, oh yeah, true. There is, yeah, 10 guys.
Yeah.
Fitzpatrick blew up at the end.
One quick thing I wanted to mention just to sort of finish off the week was Scotty. He just obviously we talked about him a bunch already, just how good he is. But he makes like I put out a tweet. He played hole 7, so the short par 5, 8, the short par 4 drivable, 10, pretty long par 5, but obviously a par 5, so still scoreable. 14, the drivable par 4, and 15, the shorter. I'd say the shorter of the couple par 5s, like 7 at -12, and he finished -11. So, I mean, he simply takes advantage of what the course gives him better than anybody else. And obviously, again, he's better than everybody else's game. He's able to reach a certain level, but also he just takes what the course gives him and tries to keep it as simple as possible outside of that. And that's, obviously why he has seen so much success.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, he knows how to score, especially when he's not playing his best stuff, right? He knows he's got to take advantage of those holes, and he does on a week in, week out
And
basis.
then middle of the green everywhere else, and you get aggressive when you have to. It's just such a simple method that most guys say they deploy, but it's obviously much harder to execute that we see.
Yeah, it's very Tiger-esque.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we'll get into the Charles Schwab Challenge, right? This course has hosted events since like 1947, I saw, so it stood the test of time. They did a renovation here a couple years ago. So the greens were very firm last year. From what I could tell, they should be pretty firm this year. It looks like good weather for most of the week.
Hmm.
Short golf course, right? Only 7,200, par 70, so two par fives. So it really opens up the field to everyone. It's a course that the correlation, right, is very heavily in fairways hit rather than distance, right, to winning. So
Hmm.
we're looking for guys who hit the ball straight, who have been in good form with their irons, and you should give yourself a good chance to win, right? Last year, the winning score, I believe, was what, 12 under?
14. Well, Riley was the only one under par, actually. Not under par, under like more than 10 under par. He was 14, and then there was like Scotty at
Yeah.
9, Keegan at 9. Obviously forgetting a couple names, but there's just the second place guys were at 9.
Yeah, which I'm surprised Keegan's not coming back here after playing
I
well
know.
last year.
Yeah, he played well here last year, but yeah, like you said, just about the course itself. I mean, there's four par threes. Like those are seemed like pretty longer. Like average distance is 210, so some longer par threes. And then for the par fours, though, par fours, the 12 par fours, 436 yards on average. So I mean, whether it be maybe there's a couple holes where you're mixing in an iron, like a wood off the tee just to get it out there. But I think, like you said before, most holes here are you're still hitting driver even though they're shorter. It's just a matter of, like you said, getting in the fairway, putting a wedge in your hand on at least, half the golf course, it seems like. And if you could do that, and like you said, if your irons, wedges are in a good spot coming into this week, it should set up pretty well for you.
Yeah, no, I'm always enjoyed watching this event. Last year wasn't a great finish, but we've had some nice finishes here in the past. Spieth has had some good finishes here
A
throughout the
lot.
early part of his career, especially. And then, now it's time to talk through the board. We'll give some
Yeah.
picks out, and we'll go from there.
All right. So board wise, just to go through it a little bit, at least the top of the board. Obviously, we have Scotty this week in it. He's at plus 240. Pretty similar, I guess vibes in a sense to a couple weeks ago with Scotty when he won by 8 at the CJ Cup. But so he's in there at plus 240, and then the next spot on the board is at over 20 to 1. So we have Berger at 22 to 1, Spieth at 22 to 1, Hideki at 25 to 1. Fleetwood 25 to 1, McNeely 30 to 1, and then Rye 33 to 1, English 35 to 1. Like we said, good finish last week for English. Siwoo Kim 40 to 1, JT Poston 45 to 1, and let's end it off with Bobby Mack at 45 to 1.
Yeah, Scotty's in such good form right now. His
Yeah.
odds are just so low that, we're never going to give him out as a pick, but
We could go the without Scotty market as well with some of the action too. If you're, really that afraid of Scotty, I wouldn't really blame you in an event like this. If you wanted to go you obviously don't get the same odds for these guys, but I wouldn't, by any means be any sort of surprise if Scotty knocks off a third one in a row here.
yeah, he's essentially 10 times more likely to win, but other than Berger and Spieth, right? So he's so elite. It's a golf course, like we just said, about hitting fairways, about hitting quality iron shots. That's what he's best at. And now that his putter is in a good spot, he's going to be tough to beat. No matter how you look at it, no matter how you word it, it's going to be Scotty's tournament to lose. As long as he has his B minus game or better. And he
That makes
gets
it
locked
fun.
in,
You got
right?
to beat Scotty.
He gets locked in for these Texas events, even though he's coming off a win last week, right? Two wins in a row now. It seems like he can really rinse that stuff out and just get focused for this week.
Any other guy would withdraw.
Yeah, exactly. Most people would withdraw, but he has, a lot of respect for people that run the tournaments and his home state where,
Yeah.
he's gonna show up and play in the event no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. But there are good names on the leaderboard as well. It's not like, where like
No, it's
Burgers.
a good event.
Yeah, Berger's playing great golf. Spieth, is playing better golf. Even though he missed the cut last week, I still think he's playing good golf. And he's won here. He's come in the top five probably a handful of times as well. Obviously that might be a different era of Spieth golf at this point, but still, he loves playing in Texas. He's loved playing here, so I do think he is live as well. Hideki's a good name. So I mean, there are good names scattered across the board. It's just a matter of one of them sort of having that spike week where, they could obviously compete with Scottie when he's also playing decent golf.
Yes, I like guys like Aaron Rai this week, right? Like Siwoo Kim, JT Poston, who have complete control of their golf ball, very good tee to green. And it's just a good golf course for guys like that who aren't the longest hitters on tour by any stretch,
Yeah.
but they're very good with their irons coming into the greens. And Poston's a great putter, obviously.
Yeah, I love these types of venues where it's it sort of just opens it up to the field in the sense that you don't need to get it out there too much. It's more so, if it whatever it is,
Exactly.
290, 300, 310, all of that's going to play
Stunning.
because you're going to have at most like on most of these par fours still a 8, 9 iron in your hand, and everybody's going to be able to control those. And obviously wind dependent, obviously how firm the greens are, everything like that, you're still going to be able to attack most of these flags, I'm sure.
Yep. All right, so let's go into some picks,
Yeah.
right? So to start, I'll throw out my top 20 parlay this week.
All right.
I'm not giving individual top 20 picks, just do a top 20 lay. Going back to my guy, Tom Hogue, great iron player, right? Has been not great really since the players. He had a couple top 20s after that, but it's not been the same. But plus 330, I think, are great odds for top 20 in a field like this, at a course like this.
Yeah.
Alex Smalley's plus 280. Just a consistent golfer, right? He's been gaining strokes gained approach for a long time now, week in, week out.
Last man in the field last week, and he played great.
Yeah, he played great. And then the last guy got Aaron Rye plus 140. Another guy just he's as clean of a ball striker as you get. He's not long off the tee. So
Should
for
be.
him to hang in there last week, he was really flushing his long irons, flushing his, 5 wood, 7 wood that he had a lot into these greens. So those three guys, Hogue, Smalley, Rye, that's plus 3821, 3,821. So throw a nice $10 bet on there. And it's three guys. It's not 4 or 5 guys. Three guys. We got a chance. As long as they make the cut, they could go low on the weekend, and you never know what'll
I
happen.
like it. No, I think Rye's a great fit for this type of course. And I also does he has like a lower ball flight. At least I imagine when I think of Rye, he's not getting it too high up there in the wind, and especially a Texas venue. I think that should definitely be beneficial for him this week. And he's in good form, like you said. Played well at a course that we didn't probably really think would fit him too well, like Quail last week. So if he's able to manage his game there, I'm sure this would be much more fit for his style of play.
Yeah, no, 100%. So those are my top 20 plays, right? Put a parlay, put them straight. Those are guys I do feel comfortable that are going to play well this week.
Nice. All right, so we got the top 20 lay from Bobby D. And then so for my first outright, I took top of the board, guys. Jordan Spieth, 22 to 1. And so obviously I know we missed a cut last week, and I'm really not bothered by that. I think I've spoke about it in past episodes where I really don't mind if guys like missed the cut the previous week and then they're coming into an event, as long as I'm still seeing somewhat like good form. And I think at least throughout the year for Spieth, he's been playing much better than I think like people are letting on. I know obviously he's not at that like top tier level of like, Scottie, Rory, Bryson, anywhere near there. But at least for like what I've been seeing in these events, he's been top 20, I think, at least like a handful of times this year. His irons have gotten better, and he's like we've talked about a little bit as well. He's pretty deep off the tee now. And I know, that's not a necessity this week, but it's obviously not going to be a negative if you're able to control that ball, getting out there a bit, farther than some of the other guys that you're playing with. So I do think it's a good venue for him as well, just because the course history. He's loved playing here. He's finished well here, so it should bring, some good vibes, I guess, in the sense that he has good memories playing here and has won here. So I think 22 to 1, hopefully, I do really want to see Spieth get back into the winner circle and see if that can ignite some, confidence in him to maybe go on a little bit of a run these next, whether it be the rest of this year, or maybe even past that to win some bigger events. But I think 22 to 1, this field with his course history should be a pretty solid number with a chance come Sunday.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really just about putting 4 rounds together for him. He's definitely showing that he still has that ability to go and score and put together a lot of birdies. It's going to be bogey avoidance, right, for a guy like Spieth. And, just if he does miss it off the tee or he does miss it coming into the green, don't continue to short side yourself. right?
That's it's his mental hiccups. Like he's playing well enough. It just he has the whether it be one or multiple, at least like per round, it seems like that. If he can somehow find a way to whether it be cut them in half or just avoid them as a whole, I think he'll really, give himself a chance. But there's obviously with Spieth, there's something much more mental than most guys, it seems like. And once that's sort of triggered, it could go the other way for him. But obviously, I'm hoping this week some good memories from this course, everything like that, sleeping in his own bed at home, coming to the course every day. Hopefully, just adds up to him at least, giving himself a shot come Sunday.
Yeah, no, I could definitely seeing him being in contention come Sunday, and I would love to see Spieth get back on the winning side of things.
All these big names are winning, man. It's obviously, again, I know he's not the big name in the sense of how good his game is right now, but it's got to do something to you if you're, that competitive edge you have to have the success he's had in the past. So I think he's got to be, I'm sure he's working in the background trying to get himself up to that. And I think it's a matter of time, hopefully, and hopefully it's this week.
Yep. So my first pick this week is Siwoo Kim. He's really just been playing great golf. The putter has not been great, but strokes gain wise, right, it's not like terrible.
No.
Last week he gained almost 2 strokes putting.
I love him with the long putter.
Yeah, the long putter I think is definitely more comfortable for him, right? Takes the risks out of it, and I think just allows him to, be more comfortable on the greens. His last 3 events, right, he's gained over a stroke in approaching to the green, which is again huge here. His driving is always, average, a little bit above average, just because he doesn't hit it far, right? He does hit a lot of fairways.
Yeah.
So I love his form coming in. The number plus 4,000, I think is very good, right? Being below guys like Spieth, right, like Fleetwood,
Yeah.
like Aaron Rai. I think he should be a little bit higher than that, given that he has played well over the last couple weeks, right? Top 10 last week, T17 at the Truist,
Yeah.
RBC, he was in contention, or more than he was in the lead for a while there, and then
Harder course there too.
yeah, right. A shorter course, tighter course. So I think those are places that he does feel comfortable. So I got Siwoo Kim plus 4,000 as my first pick.
Nice. All right, so I like that. And then for my second pick, I have JT Poston. He's in the same range as Siwoo, but just a little above. He's at 45 to 1.
Yep.
And obviously, like you said earlier, JT played really well last week. He obviously didn't have the best Sunday. I think he shot one or two over, maybe. I forget exactly what it was, but not the best round on Sunday. But still, his game's obviously in good form. And this is just simply a course that, like, the type of course that he really likes to play. He's not deep off the tee, but he is very consistent, in the fairway. And he's also like a very solid wedge player, like, 8, 9 wedge, that sort of section of his game. It seems to be very solid consistently. He's had success in the past at RBC, Heritage, playing those events. So I think, like, I don't know, exactly how similar the courses are, but at least, yardage wise, how most of those par fours plays out. It should be somewhat similar. And again, like I just said, he's had good success there in the past. And I think at 45 to 1, this sort of field without too many of the top dogs, obviously we got Scottie, but outside of that, nobody really, that we should be too scared of compared to JT. So I think 45 to 1, pretty solid number. And it's just a guy that I think his game's so consistent that he's going to give himself a shot probably come Sunday.
Yeah, I mean his putter can get hot in a hurry. And he's got 3 wins right on tour. So when he gets in contention, which doesn't happen very often, but when his game is in a good spot, he can get himself in contention, and he can play some good golf and finish it out.
100%.
So my second guy got JJ Spawn plus 4,500. His 1 win is in Texas, which I do like. He's also got, right, again, similar story to Siwoo. 7 of his last 9 events, he's been gaining on approach, which is very important around here. And 8 out of the last 9 events, he's been gaining off the tee. So again, 2 very important statistics here. His putting is always just about average, right? Either a little under, a little over. Last 4 weeks, he's gained about a half a stroke total or average, I should say, putting. His
Mm,
real weakness has been around the greens, right?
yeah.
So he has lost strokes the last 5 weeks around the greens. When he played well at the Players, he gained 1.2 strokes around the greens.
Yep.
So if he can just chip decently, I think he'll give himself a good chance to be in contention. He played great the first two rounds last week. He was like 4 under on Thursday before he had a tough finish, and then he shot 3 or 4 under on Friday. So
Yep.
his game is there, right? Again, it's like all these guys, it's just about putting those 4 rounds together and, having your bad round be 1-2 under rather than 1-2 over.
Yeah. And obviously, we saw him at the Players earlier this year as well, against Rory. So he has that ability to compete in, bigger events. And obviously, this isn't a big event per se, but we got Scottie in the field. So if you want to beat Scottie, you got to be able to compete with those top dogs. And he's shown the ability to, hang in there somewhat.
Yeah.
And he is a very solid iron player. He's able to, stay consistent with the irons, give himself a lot of looks from like that 10, 20 foot range. So if he can do that, I think it comes down to, like you said, when he doesn't hit those, getting up and down, but also just like being able to make a couple 10 to 15 footers on a daily basis.
Yeah, he's got two second place finishes this year, right? One at the Honda,
Yep.
one at the Players. So, he's been knocking on the door and I think he'll give himself a good chance this week.
All right. I like that. And then so for my third guy, I got Ryan Gerard 70 to 1. And I mean, like we saw him last week. I think he shot, I forget if it was 5 or 6 under on Thursday. So he's playing, solid golf. He played a tough golf course, made it look pretty simple for a little while. I think he finished at 4 under. I think
Yeah,
he was
T8. Yeah.
T8. So he still finished well. And I just think going throughout the year, we've talked about him a bunch. We've had him top 20. I think I'd taken him outright 1 or 2 times at this point. I think he's just a guy that's really trending in that direction of knocking off, a big win for his career, getting that first win on the PGA Tour, and really, taking that next step to be a consistent player for years to come at this level. And his game, has been there all year. His irons, his driver, his putter, he has game throughout the bag. There's not really one glaring weakness. And if I were to put one out there, I think it would maybe be, how deep he can get it out there off the tee. And like we said a number of times, that's not going to be an issue for him this week. So I think it should be a really strong play. He came in second back at the Valero the last time they played in Texas here. So it seemed hopefully that could be, somewhat momentum, continue to play good golf in an area that it seems like he's comfortable with. And at 70 to 1 in a field like this again, I think at least how he's played throughout the year probably should be a bit of a lower number. So I'm definitely happy with the 70 to 1 that I got.
Yeah, no, I mean we both love Gerard. He's a flusher of the ball, hits that tight draw.
Hmm.
And he's really knocking on the door as well. So it's just a matter of time for a guy with that talent. It's not if, but when.
Exactly. I agree.
So I got two more outrights. I got Brian Harmon plus 5,500. The guy's a very streaky player and he's on a good streak right now, right? He's last week didn't play great on the weekend, finished T60th. Truist did not play great golf either, but RBC right tied for third. Valero he won. So his putter has been better. He's gained strokes putting in his last five events versus prior to that, right? He was struggling big time. Approach the green, he's been average, right, a little bit above average. The Valero he won because he was plus 1.6 approach the green. So if he can have another dialed in iron week like that where he was hitting a lot of darts there. Remember tracking him when we were following Cam as well. I mean, he was just giving himself look after look inside of 15 feet.
The Valero,
Yeah.
he was striped, and his putter, he finally found his putter. That was really what he was missing. And
Yep.
if his putter's on, and he, like you've been saying, if he has his wedges somewhat, he's one of those guys that can make enough to compete every time.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, his off the tee numbers are average, but that's because he's a short hitter. So he has, the ability to hit the ball very straight, very consistently. So again, those are three guys, similar attributes, right? Have been striking their irons well. Putting has been in a good spot, and they're short off the tee, so their off the tee numbers aren't great, but they're a little bit above average. Where that's what you'll need this week.
Yep.
All right,
All
and then
right.
my last one, I got Eric Cole plus 10,000. Which, Cole, I've been a big fan of Cole for a while.
Mhm.
Similar story, right? I mean, all my guys, I kind of was looking for that sort of combination of strokes gained approach. He's gained one, two, three, seven of the last 8 weeks, right? The only time he didn't was the Zurich Classic, which who knows, what that really means with his partner, where they ended up off the tee. So really his last seven individual events, he's gained off the coming into the greens, half of them by over a stroke, which is huge. His putting has been in the green the last 10 weeks, right? So been rolling the rock better, which is been his thing. When he's playing well, he's rolling the rock well. And then off the tee, right, pretty much maybe a little bit below average. And he's not that short, right? So he's got to find those fairways this week, and he'll be able to get himself in contention, right? Even if he's not finding the fairways at the rate, that we're looking for, I
Yeah.
still see him giving himself a chance because he is putting the ball well and he's a grinder, right? So his around the green is decent, nothing crazy. But that's I think that number he's due to have his breakout win, right? I mean, he's had a T5, four top 20s in the last seven starts, right? So he's playing quality golf. And that's something that, we're always looking for guys in good form, at this part of the schedule.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, we've been following Cole ever since he came in second at the Honda. We know, but Big Bob absolutely loves that guy. So
Mm.
I like the play. He's been playing pretty solid golf, and you assume it's a matter of time until he probably knocks one off and actually gets a win because he is a really, at least when he's obviously when everybody's in form, they're a consistent player, but when he's in form, he's able to get in contention, it seems like pretty consistently. It's just a matter of obviously getting over that little bit of a hump and getting into serious contention and obviously getting himself a win at some point.
Yeah. So, with those odds, I feel like it's a good time to, buy on him early and, see if he can sneak one of these events out. He might be a good guy to look at with the Scotty stuff, right? Without Scotty.
Exactly. Yep. Nah, I agree. And maybe when we post our picks, we'll mention like what the without Scotty market odds are as well.
Yeah.
All right. So and then for my last two guys as well. So I'm gonna go with I say his name wrong every time. You want to say it for me?
Who?
Abatia.
Akshay Bhatia?
Akshke Bhatia. I'm gonna go with him at 70 to 1. And I mean, you were just talking about how he always goes with guys with great form, and honestly, he is not in good form at all. But for his, we know how good he is. We've seen him win, I think, two times now on tour. He competed very seriously at the Players, had like five looks the last five holes to tie it up and get into the playoff with Rory and JJ, and obviously wasn't able to get that done. But he's been struggling the last, month at this point or so. So, his game's not in good form, but at 70 to 1, it's simply not a number that I'm willing to avoid because we know how good he can be. And if, he's able to find something, there's no doubt in a field like this that he's going to be live, especially because like I'm thinking back to previous events. I can't name them by name, but he's played well in Texas in the past. He's like, shown like that he could play in heavy wind conditions, firm greens, everything like that. So I think it should be a pretty good fit. And I'm just hoping he finds some form at a solid number like 70 to 1.
Yeah, he's got so much talent. I mean, it only takes one good round for him to really flip that around. I would say I think his putting, he was putting out of his ass right to start the year.
Yeah.
That's never been his strong suit, and he did switch to that long putter, which he has looked better with.
Yeah.
That's really the main concern there. Also, he really only plays that like spinny high fade right
It's
now,
so
which
spinny.
it's not going to be great come the weekend with the wind, you would think.
I know.
But again, that number, it's hard not to take that for a guy like that. He's considered
Yeah.
one of the most talented people.
Exactly. Like I completely get there's a reason he's 70 to 1, but while he's within that range, sort of like my thoughts when Hovland was struggling for such a long time, I was able to get him at 80 to 1, and I mean I just thought that was ridiculous for the type of player that we know he can be. So I'm hoping maybe it's something similar and he could find something and knock off a win.
Yeah, and he's won in Texas before too, which is
Exactly.
nice.
Yeah. So it's some good memories there as well. Then my last guy I've been going with a lot as of late, but I'm gonna ride with him again, Michael Thorbjornsen. He's at 120 to 1. And I've talked about, like I just said, I've talked about him a bunch. I just think it's a very good number for how good he's been playing. His finish doesn't show last week at the PGA Championship, but he was around like -5 or
He
-6
got to
heading.
six, yeah.
Yeah, got to six heading into the weekend. And then, he did rattle off two consecutive poor rounds, plus three Saturday, Sunday. So, that wasn't too good to see. But at the same time, like for the last month and a half now, he's been playing great golf, showing that he's finally, coming to the player that we know that he was in his amateur career and probably will be for years moving forward. So 120 to 1, even though, he's one of those guys that really does get it out there off the tee, but he honestly is relatively accurate and he's a pretty good wedge player, but we've talked about it as well. He does struggle somewhat in those windier conditions, so that is a little bit of a worry for him. But again, at 120 to 1, I think it's a pretty solid number and something that with how good he's been playing with his talent, I think it's a matter of time before he really does knock one off.
Yeah, and it's tough your first major in contention, right? I
Tough.
mean, that's never going to be easy. And those sort of fast greens and firm greens, the nerves get up at all. It's really hard to hole out at a place like that. So, it's understandable he struggled on the weekend. That's probably what most people expected.
I think it all came on 17 and 18 too. Like, yeah, like a double double
And
maybe.
Friday, he bogeyed 16,
Yeah.
17, I think.
Yep.
So, that's our picks this week. We'll do an update on the Ryder Cup stuff next week, just to get an update on where our rankings are at,
Yeah.
and talk about, what we're thinking. It's really Europe it's such an advantage right now, it feels like, just in terms of their depth and their
Seems like it.
selections they could play around with.
Yeah.
Really it would be nice to see Clanton get started off to a hot streak here in June. And
2 weeks. Oh, we didn't. With David Ford's playing this week, who him, Clinton, and Gordon Sargent all. Ford's not actually pro yet this week. He had just a sponsor exemption, but come the RBC Canadian, the
yeah,
Canadian, yeah, that in 2 weeks. That's when him, Clinton, and Sargent, who's completely lost his game.
yeah,
It sounds like are
yeah.
all making their tour starts.
Yep. And that's it's always nice to see that next batch of players come in, see where they're at.
Ford and Clinton are elite.
Yeah, I think they could be similar to, like, the Morikawa, Hovland, Matt Wolf group, right? And
Sorry, in Wolf's Path.
yeah. Yeah. But all right, that's the episode for Colonial. We will post our picks onto Twitter, and we'll post some clips and we'll go from there. Peace out.